I'm a soldier for Christ. I'm a soldier.
No, they'll never take us under, because we're bringing truth like thunder. Raining on your speakers like a ton of bricks. Hold the cross high, because we're kept.
I think this topic is the heart of the issue in our Catholic Church in the United States. The heart of the problem is fatherhood, a fatherless culture. And even as Catholics, even having bad spiritual fathers, this also affects us. And so, Terry, this article here is very apropos. It says that back in 1960, there was just under 6 million Americans, minors, living with only one parent. Okay? Under 6 million. That's the number which at the time represented not even 10% of the nation's child. But if you fast forward to 2020, that number is tripled to over 18.5 million minors living with one parent. So that's a haunting 25% of the current child population.
Unbelievable.
Has one parent. And in most cases, it's the father that's out of the picture.
90% of the time, yep.
Yep. So as a matter of fact, in 2020, of the over 18.5 million children living with only one parent, well over 80% of these cases consisted of the child living without his father. And this is very prevalent, Terry, in the black community.
Big time. Hey, Jesse, we're going to talk about it. The black community before the 1960s was very stable. Did you know that? Yes, only about 10%. Yeah. And then, of course, we started giving money to the to the black community, which was the worst thing they could ever have done. But we got time to go through all these statistics. Let's continue, Jess.
Yeah, Terry, and I'll tell you, you know who's been talking about this? Larry Elder's been talking about
African American on Larry Elder, yeah.
Yeah, he's a black attorney out here in Southern California. Yep. Mm-hmm. You also have Denzel Washington, of probably the most famous black actor in Hollywood.
Yeah, he's
been talking about. He goes, the police aren't our problem. He says it's having no fathers in the home. That's our problem.
Exactly.
And also, interesting enough, Barack Obama on YouTube says the same thing, Terry.
That's right.
So if you look at the data reflecting the number of kids growing up with only one mother, it's pretty apparent that with regard to the marital status of these moms, the never married group has increased like a meteor since the 1960s. In other words, the shacking up group. And in another census graph, the same trend is showing. The percent of children born out of wedlock is shown to go from around 7% in 1964 to beyond 40% in the course of 50 years. And the decrease in marriage and increase of father absence has two main causes from a Catholic perspective.
Here they come. Oh, yeah.
Now, of course, nobody outside the Catholic Church, they won't buy into this.
No,
Protestants,
we do.
The medical community say, no, you guys are crazy. But here's the two main causes that have destroyed the family. Number one, the contraceptive culture.
Mentality.
And number two, and the welfare state.
You got it.
So those two, again, in 1965, this year's going to go down in infamy because that's when the U.S. Supreme Court, the leftists gave us Griswold versus Connecticut. It was a court ruling that allowed married couples to buy and use contraceptives without government restriction. Before 1965, it was not allowed in the United States. But the Protestants caved in on this, and the first denomination who caved in on this, they were the Anglicans. They actually caved back way before Griswold versus Connecticut.
Oh, yeah.
They accepted contraception 30 years before the Supreme Court legalized it. They have their own conferences, like we as Catholics have our, ecumenical conferences, 21 that we've had in 2,000 years. The Anglicans have what's called the Lambeth Conference. They have it every couple of years. And they were the first Protestant denomination to accept contraception back in 1930. And so Griswold versus Connecticut, the 7-2 U.S. Supreme Court ruling, they already were seeing that Christianity was caving in. Protestants have caved in on this even before the ruling. So with all the Protestant denominations eventually compromising with this moral evil, it was easy for the Supreme Court just to say, hey, well, you know what? It's already basically a fait accompli. It's already accomplished here in the U.S. The only church that remains steadfast in doctrine, not in practice, because most Catholics contracept.
That's correct.
Okay, so in doctrine, the church has still held on to the perennial teachings of the church. In practice, that's quite another thing. And I'm going to tell you, I will blame our malformed clergy. The priest that prepared me for marriage, I don't even want to get.
We know that one. Yeah,
I want to vomit when I think about this. He was like a drug dealer, really. He opened up an album, and he had all kinds of different contraceptives in an album, like a drug dealer opens it up on the street and says, "Which one do you want?" So you could tell he'd been doing this for years, because he already had like a prepared album with the names and the little baggies where they were at and pictures. This guy was a monster. But again, he was formed by people like Dolan. Cardinal Dolan, he brags about it. He's on YouTube saying, "Hey, you know what? I've been a priest for over 40 years, and I've never given a homily on contraception. Maybe I should one day. Yeah, maybe I should." So, Terry, all I'm just saying is this. We have the culture against us, and we're like kids without dads, orphan dads that have not formed our conscience. How did I know that this was wrong? I went to a Long Beach family conference like 30 years ago, and I heard some Protestant giving his testimony saying this is wrong. I never heard that from the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Well, Jesse, today 92% of Americans believe birth control is morally acceptable, and about 71% believe fornication is morally acceptable. Remember what I said last year, 2020, we did the Bishop Strickland Hour, and we did the 6th commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. And I was told that YouTube said, no, this is offending our listenership. You can't do that. You can't say that adultery is wrong. That's how far along we've gotten. Now, Pope Paul VI, back in 68, did that encyclical, Humanae Vitae. Here's 50-some years later. And I want to just say, you said that the clergy, I want to go higher than the clergy. I mean, I think the bishops that been silent regarding abortion or even contraception, they're connected, just stayed quiet. So what happened is people felt like, well, if they're not going to say anything, it must be okay.
I'm a soldier for Christ. I'm a soldier.
No, they'll never take us under, because we're bringing truth like thunder. Raining on your speakers like a ton of bricks. Hold the cross high, cause we're Catholics. Fight the good fight with the truth, stand tall with the truth. I'm a warrior for Christ, I'm in love with the truth. Love God, save souls, slay.